All right. Hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are here live with the Dev Talk Show. It's Wednesday. Here we are. It's Rich Ross, it's Chris Gomez, and it's myself, Andy Schwam. We're here on Wednesday, March 9th.
March
I mean,
9th.
wow.
Yeah.
I cannot believe time is flying. Hello to people in chat. I see a few people already saying hi to us, and hello and welcome back. I'm excited about this show. I've said it before. Um, I'm biased, I guess, right? But I like when we do these Git shows because I learn great stuff from Chris Gomez. Chris brings it when we talk about Git.
Yep.
I mean, this is, so I'm excited about this show. These are the shows that I go to work and I tell people, hey, you got to watch the one we did last night. I don't always say that, but the Git ones, I'm like, you guys got to go watch the show we did last night. So I'm excited about that. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Happy to have. Really looking forward to seeing this one as well. Um, it there's something we always wind up picking up from this, so this is great. And it's awesome to see people already up and chatting away and chatting with us, just kind of bantering about. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that means other people are excited too, I think, right? That's the point, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a good show. Chris, you were running the stream over on your side today, and so I kicked it off, but you're with us. How's everything running? We're live. We got audio.
It seems like we're live. People are answering. It looks like the sound meters are moving. That's all a good sign, right? The frames are not
sign,
dropping.
You got it down to a science.
Yeah, it still feels touch and go every time, though. That must be I think that's the live part of it.
Yeah,
it's the
definitely.
thrill. I mean, you love the thrill of running.
I think we got a great
right?
question though here. I think we got a great question to open things up.
And I think we all have different opinions on that question.
Yeah, better to watch at Twitch or YouTube. What do you all think?
By the way, it's a first time chat, and never seen the show before.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
I watch on Twitch. I don't know about you guys. I replays, by the way. Here's a good time to mention, if you're here for the first time, that all our stuff is replayable on YouTube, right? We've got a really big catalog there. But I don't know. I like it on Twitch. Now, Anthony Lupo on YouTube says it's working well on YouTube, and it should. It shouldn't really matter. Actually,
Great.
It really should be viewer's choice, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
So I mean, we simulcast on Twitch and YouTube, and many weeks we also simulcast on Twitter. The Twitter simulcast is an experiment, and didn't do it this week because I experimented with something and it didn't work. So unfortunately, Twitter's not going to get the show live today. So that that's the way we learn. Is it's like, okay, you can test all you want in practice, and that's all right. Can we bring it live? And it didn't work today. So it's just, I think generally you'll find that on Twitter, we promote Twitch and YouTube. I think it's fair to say that we have a lot of our regulars come over to Twitch, but we are growing on YouTube. And the reason I think we're growing on YouTube, I really do, is that the show titles are being caught by the YouTube algorithm, and people are saying, oh, there's a lot of people interested in Git. There's a lot of people interested in Azure DevOps. There's a lot of people interested in solid principles. And so they're watching shows we did even a year ago. And then they're starting. And then what we're seeing in the analytics is like, oh, wow, I watched this solid show a year ago. And then they start going through the list. Right. So that's cool.
You see the comment there from Loka? That's a really good comment.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
YouTube.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of partial. I'm just kind of partial to looking at the YouTube feed. That's just, where I typically hang out anyway. So yeah. So each one of us kind of has a.
I use like moderator view in Twitch while we're live. I kind of like it because I can get the chat really big, and I can get the video really small, so it's not consuming resources on my machine as much. I probably can do that with YouTube too. I'm just not familiar with it, but yeah, right. I mean, what's funny is I watch a lot of YouTube these days, but still, for when we're streaming, I put on Twitch. But I find myself at nights. I don't know about you guys. Instead of watching TV, on my TV, I have YouTube, and I'm just watching all kinds of crazy guitar videos or tech videos or cooking video. I watch all kinds of stuff. No cats though. I don't watch cat videos. But yeah, being able to pause and resume is a really good feature for during the show. So yeah, hello to people that are with us. If you're chatting, keep it coming. Keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming throughout the show. If you're just chilling out, listening in the background, and you don't feel like typing, hang out. We're cool. We like you.
Welcome.
Yeah, we're glad you're here and welcome.
But throw us a like.
There you go.
We do show people's chat messages live. We love to hear your comments. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your tips and comments. If you have experience with anything we're talking about, we want to learn from you as well. And today you're seeing that we don't have all the different services integrated. And that is a goal of ours, to integrate them all so we can bring up viewers from anywhere. You could tweet at the show and we would bring your tweet up if we wanted. That's actually a project we've worked on the show using Event Grid and the Twitch API. And there's some other technologies I already know we're going to use to make this happen, like SignalR and so on. And I think we will probably work on that on the show a little bit, but just haven't gotten back to it in a little while. But I'm excited about that. It's been a dream of mine for a long time. We've sketched it out on this show. We started on it on this show. We got it working in a container on this show, and still a work in progress.
Yeah, there's so much to do in so little time. Like, we have good topics. We had a guest on last week, right? We had Brian Manisi talking about that was last week, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And we talked about using Azure DevOps and Git in like a hybrid fashion, GitHub, I should say, and Azure DevOps, and that was really cool. And there's just so much. Like, each week, there's just another show to do. I would like to get back to that, building those apps. So that would be really cool to build those integrations, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
So I hope we do. Yeah. So what else is going on? What have you guys been up to this week? Chris, you did some speaking, right?
Yeah. So last weekend was Philly.net's 31st Code Camp, and it was all virtual. If you aren't familiar with Philly.net, the three of us have a heritage from Philly.net, which was the local developer users group that met in person in Malvern, Pennsylvania, for 20 years. I mean, since the beginning of the .NET framework back in 2000, 2002 timeframe, and always had in-person code camps. And we were one of the first user groups that I know of that was streaming our meetings and streaming selected talks from code camps. We were really excited to have audiences from all over the world. In fact, I think some of the regulars that maybe retweet or like or come and visit, they're from all around the world. We have like good friends in Rio de Janeiro. And one time it was so fantastic to finish up a code camp. And one of the last things somebody put in chat was, "Hey, this was great. I got to watch it all day from Germany." And that's just such an incredible feeling. But, we've all gone remote in a lot of ways the last couple of years. And so the last few Philly.net code camps have been remote. And the one that happened last weekend was no exception. We had a tremendous group of speakers with a tremendous group of topics. And the great thing about them all is the recordings of each of these shows is making their way to Philly.net's YouTube channel. So this is not the Dev Talk Show. This is the user group that we came from, thanks to Bill Wolf, Rob Kaiser. Mel Blauta was a huge part of Code Camp this weekend. The people that make that possible, it's great work. We're lucky that this group is still, we're still going, right? We're still doing as much as we can at this point. I think we'll see some more monthly meetings out of there. But if you head over to the Philly.net YouTube channel, where there's now 990 subscribers, not bad. Go ahead and give them a like and subscribe. There is a Code Camp 22 playlist and you can watch the videos that are up there now. There's 11 now. I want to say there's about 20 more, maybe even a little bit more, that are still getting, they're just getting formatted for YouTube, getting pushed up. It's all volunteer effort. So you'll see them going up over the next couple weeks.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it's
Rich,
cool.
were you a participant or an attendee?
Unfortunately, I was not. I had as part of my day job, I was actually talking to customers, so I was not able to attend this one. But yeah,
I'm in the same boat, unfortunately.
But I got to see the chatter. I'm starting to watch, some of the sessions that were up there. So I think that's some really great content to go check out for sure.
Yeah, this was mine.
So would we say that was like Philly.net's Baskin Robbins anniversary kind of thing or something like that? Or like Baskin Robbins milestone 31?
31.
Right?
Yeah.
It's got to be
31 flavors.
Yeah, this was my talk.
So
I've threatened here how many times to say, hey, I should do a tour of different Git IDEs, because you all know what my favorite is if you watch the show. And it turned out that it was a real scramble. I only went through SourceTree, Gitkraken, GitHub Desktop, Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio IDE, just because, hey, it is a .NET Code Camp, and those developers are going to see, like, hey, a lot of them might be in a Visual Studio IDE, and so I'm trying to kind of show them, like, here's what else is out there. And man, I looked down at the clock, and there was only 20 minutes to go, and I said, wow, I really got to hustle. And I really don't feel like I gave the topic justice. I think that you could spend, a half an hour on each IDE. And right. In the end, yeah. I think one of the problems I had is I hated that it felt like a Gitkraken commercial.
Well, that's not the worst thing that you could do. I mean, in all honesty, right? Like, I know you don't want to do a commercial. I get what you're saying.
Right.
But I got to admit, man, I'm sure we're going to be seeing it tonight. You're a fan, and it's pretty good. Like, I've never heard anyone dislike it. So you could do worse than learn about Gitkraken,
Yeah. The nice thing is it gave me a chance to take a look at the advancements in the other IDEs, and there are still, I do not want to bash anybody, but there are still some that I just go, I think you're doing yourself a disservice using this, and because I'm afraid of the confusion that'll come about. I'm afraid of I fear later that you'll just feel like I don't know what I did, and it's like such a horrible feeling. And version control shouldn't be difficult. We're trying to save our work, right?
Yeah.
It is difficult, though. I mean, it's sort of simple in some ways, but it's complicated in other ways, right? There's a lot going on there. And, listen, let's face it. If we want to make version control simple, meaning like the development world, community, whatever, it can be simple, right? But with simplicity, what you get is less features, right? If you want to just be able to check things in and that's it, like I'm sure we can make that simple, right?
Yeah.
But with flexibility, with complexity, with features, things get complicated, right? I think so. Don't beat it up too much.
No, but I think that's kind of an interesting spin on it, because where I've been focusing and trying to get up to speed on are some of the concepts around what we call fusion development, right? If you're doing anything in the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, there is, couple of different roles, essentially, if you will. There's a citizen developer, or somebody who's more of a business person who understands how to the requirements around what they want, can put those pieces together and do some macro type expressions and get a really interesting app going. But at some point they may bump up against the wall, and you need to get a pro developer in there to connect the backend APIs, create custom connectors, do those kind of things. Well, what's starting to with both of those camps is, on the Power Platform, how do we do ALM and DevOps for those applications? And then, to your point, Andy, taking it up a level, I just need to check this in. I just need to publish it, right? as a developer, or as a business person, how can that be abstracted for them? So it's just maybe a click or a right click and select and have that happen. So that's some of the cool things that are taking place over on that platform, which I think is
Really?
some really awesome capabilities.
Chris, you thinking what I'm thinking?
We need a show.
That's a show. That's a show right there, right? We got a topic. Because
I got a guess if we want to do it.
Power Platform.
Power
Platform makes is a show I don't think we've done that in a while, right, or at all.
We never have.
And it's pretty impressive, right? I'm one of those developers who I like to think like I don't go for this low code, no code stuff. Like I'm a developer, right? But then you start seeing what you can do in there, and you're like, this is pretty interesting, right? I can do certain things really quickly in Power Platform. But one of the things that would turn certain people off to those platforms, and I don't mean Power Platform, but any of those solutions, right? Is, well, where's you can't do source control, you can't do this. Sounds like you can do source control, right? Yeah. So I think that would be a fun show. In chat, we're getting, what is the Power Platform? Can you give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, definitely. So it's not necessarily a .NET language framework, as it were. It basically is Microsoft's low code capabilities, right? So being able to say I need to, as a business person, I might have this application that I have this great idea for an application, but it's not really an enterprise application, right? It doesn't need to get a developer team involved. I don't need to bring IT in to do it. I can just kind of, put those pieces together myself. Maybe I've got data that sits in a spreadsheet, or I've got data that sits in Dataverse, which is the underlying Power Platform repository for data. Maybe it sits over in SQL and I make a connection to that, right? But I just want to be able to string this together because, for maybe it's a small stretch of time, maybe it's something that's a small bit of functionality for our business. I just want to be able to put that together. And I don't need to know anything more than how to write a macro in Excel. That's the level of complexity that's needed to get an interesting application up and running.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to integrate with other things. I mean, you touched upon just the bare basics there, but I think you can easily connect to other sources and tie into all kinds of features that you might want to tie in together, right? I mean, I don't even know how to have an example, but there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of connectors to existing systems. If they don't exist, like your line of business apps might not, then that's when you can go ahead and do a custom connector to make that happen. But why don't we, if there's definitely some interest, and it sounds like there might be, why don't we put a pin in it, and we can certainly come out as well. Yeah, and absolutely. The antithesis of cool. Power BI is also pretty useful as well. So yeah, I think let's tee up a conversation around that.
Yeah. It definitely feels like a show. Questions and it's one that I've wanted to look at for a while, right? I haven't.
I don't want to take any more time away from Chris because I know he's got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we're like 20 minutes in. We're having a good time, right? But I'm like, wow.
Hey.
Yeah, that's the way the show goes, right? But what do you think, Chris? Do you want to are you set up, or should we stall for you?
No, I'm actually, what I'm really doing is I'm trying to get this shared to you folks that the stream can already see.
Yeah, you have trouble Skype sharing?
You know what it is? It's just that, like, I've got so many windows open that I'm going, where is the Skype window?
First world problems.
Maybe right? Now you have it?
I'm seeing your Skype settings right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's blacked out too, but we
let's try that again. Show me. I want this one right here. How's that? Hey, they already see it. They already see it. Yeah. It is so much easier.
Right, so no one gets it. Yeah.
It's so much easier to share to you folks watching the show than it is to the two of them. I know that might sound strange, but it's true. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some Git features, merging and branching, and the reality is a lot of you watching, if you're a developer, you may be using Git every day and it's feel very comfortable. What I hope that even the most experienced developer will learn one thing tonight. I hope that's the case. And even if you just kind of have been confused, like, I don't know why Git does these weird things sometimes, I hope that they will seem less weird after the show. If you pick up one tip tonight, that'll be great. A few weeks ago, we started talking about Git, and the plan was to even include this that night. But what I realized is things that I practiced and rehearsed that took 5 minutes, we talked about for 45 minutes. Because when you really start to get it in front of people, including Andy and Rich, but even folks in chat, the questions, the comments, I don't want to even just say questions, really just people with their own tips, their own experience, it really started to flow. So what you're all seeing is, this happens to be GitHub. And I created this site just to have an example that we can work with. So I want to talk first about the fact that there's 3 main points I want to make before we start. One of them is that for many years, I've done Git talks, and I've even done some this might sound weird to you out there, full day workshops on Git. The first time I was asked by Bill Wolf at Philly.net, by the way, to do an 8-hour workshop, you know what I thought? I said, what am I going to do for 8 hours? And then as I started writing the content, I started realizing, wow, I might run out of time. Because in a full day workshop where we get together, I like to go into how Git works under the hood so you understand everything, and you start using some of my terminology like commit graphs and immutable commits and sticky notes and so on. And maybe we'll go over some of that stuff. We talked about a lot of that last time. So first of all, the first thing I hope everyone gets out of this is that for years we would start by saying, how do you create a Git repo? And I would say, and people, the answer I would expect is, oh, git init. Recently, I was talking, I don't know if I told this story last time. Recently, I was talking to some developers, and one of them answered, like I said, anybody, whatever you think. They said, git clone. And, in the moment, I thought about it and I said, you know what? That's so true nowadays. I feel like we're long past the point that all of us are sitting at home. Oh, what is this new Git thing? Git init, and playing with it ourselves. We're going to our jobs, our first jobs, or maybe you're in school and there's a repository for you to clone. And that's how we're experiencing version control, by taking an already existing project in. And when you use Git either at work or in open source, they're used differently. So tonight's examples are better for work. And the reason I say that is because at work, I'm pretty sure of this. I would love to know what you think, Andy, what you think, Rich, and I would love to know what people think in chat. Is at work, I feel like what happens is some repository, some server, if you will, is chosen to be the golden master where this is where the code goes. This is where the CI/CD runs from to build the code and ship the code and test the code. This is the one that matters. Your clone of that repository that comes down to your machine, obviously you need it to work, but it's not the important one. If your laptop blows up, who cares? It's that golden master, whether it lives, maybe your company uses GitHub. Maybe they use Azure repos. Maybe they use GitLab. All of these companies, a lot of them, you can install this locally. Maybe they use Bitbucket. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. In general, what happens is you will clone the repository and you will have rights to push branches to the repository. If your employer's IT folks or whoever's in charge of this has done the one thing I hope they really did, because I do think this is important in a work repo structured this way, is don't let you push to the main branch, whether it's called main or trunk, whatever you call it. Usually you disable push rights to that. That way, in order for me to get code into the main trunk, the main development line of development that's for release, I have to go the pull request route. Now, when you're working by yourself in Git and you're the owner, you don't have to do that. But at work, I would say I think I've described generally how we all go to work and use source control. Is there is a repo that I clone, a repository I clone. I might create branches on it. Many of your teams will have standards. They want you to make feature branches. They might even have a standard of how you should name them. And then you'll open a pull request to get that brought back to main or trunk or whatever you call your main branch. I think that's, any comments on that, Andy or Rich?
I think that kind of, there's some variation of how you because there's different ways of not branch policies, different ways of doing branch flow, if you will. And your organization may have one version or another, and that's fine as long as it works for your culture and organization. They're usually swappable. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with whatever it is your organization is using. But I totally agree on the branch protection. It's one of the first things I was with a customer today, and it's one of the first things we did when we looked at the repo and said, all right, let's go into settings, let's put branch policies in place and get that locked down.
Right. This is different from working in open source, which we are not going to cover tonight. Maybe that's another show. If you wanted to contribute to an important open source project, whether it's Ruby, ASP.NET Core, I don't care, pick one. In that world, you will not be given rights to that repository. They don't know you. And they don't, I don't want to say this isn't mean. They don't have time to get to know who you are and to decide, should we give this person rights to branch here and to push here? No, you will work solely by pull request. And the way you will get a copy of the repository is you will do something that GitHub and friends call forking the repository, just like a fork in the road. It'll mean that whole repository will be cloned to your account. You will own it. You will have 100%, do whatever you want. Destroy anything you want. It doesn't matter. You are living in an isolated sandbox of your very own, and then you will make a pull request across repositories from yours to the one the maintainers care about, and then they'll accept it or they won't accept it. We're not going to cover that tonight. This is going to be all about how you use it at work. So let's just take a look at what I've got here. I have a pretty simple site that I'm going to fire up real quick here. So tonight you're going to see code that's HTML, JavaScript, CSS. The important thing here is that the code doesn't matter as much. Okay, I'm not expecting anybody here to be an expert in any of this. I don't think that expertise will be required. But the reason why I made this choice is because it makes it very easy for me to show you what the code does. And the code is just this little website all about hockey. Hockey's loads of fun. You need a special place to play hockey. And then here's some of the equipment you need. So there's a list that's going to get filled out. And in this first iteration of it, there's some working JavaScript down here. So there's a survey for which team is the best. And of course, you could get this wrong, right? You might pick the wrong team. Like these are clearly the wrong teams. And then you might pick the correct team. And so anyways, the code is not really super important. So now that we've
sarcasm, by the way, I feel like we might need to tell people that you say that so straight. You might pick the wrong team. I'm like, Chris, I feel like I need to deliver the rim shot.
So
when you're talking about who's the wrong team and who's the right team there, but you were wrong anyway. You actually, we probably should do a pull request on that.
Yeah, you think so? There might be a conflict though,
because it looked like there was a bug that said the Kings were the best.
Yeah, right.
And I think we would probably have some discrepancy on that. And so maybe there's a pull request right there. But
there could be.
All kidding aside, let's get into this because this is, I know the demo you're talking about doing today and it's going to be good,
So what I want you to see is that let's just pretend, and you can go to this site right now. The DevTalkShow is an organization on GitHub. It's our organization. We have some repos there, not too many. Maybe we'll have more. And this repository, git-hockey-site, this is the main one. The folks at this workplace, this is the repository that counts. This is the one that I have cloned. I've used git clone to get this. And then we have a policy that we should work on a feature branch, right? I mean, that's a good policy, right? So let's take a look. I am currently in Visual Studio Code. That feature branch is listed in the lower left. we have a policy at this fictitious workplace that you should name the branch user and then slash the slash underneath the question mark, your username at work, and then another slash, and then the name of the branch. And what that does is in a lot of popular tools, including Visual Studio Code, I think is one of them, but I know that GitKraken, my favorite tool, is one of them. It creates this folder structure. So I would be able to technically go find somebody else's branch up on the remote. The remote is just a fancy term for the server in the sky. When you say git clone, which I've already done, this scenario has already been set up. But when you say git clone, Git does some things by convention. It just happens magically. It creates what's called a remote, which is basically it remembering where you cloned from, and it calls that origin. That just happens. So by default, many of the commands you use in Git, including git pull, git push, git fetch, they have an optional parameter. Which remote do you want to pull, push, or fetch from? But most of us don't use that parameter ever, because I would say just about all the time, we only care about the one remote that we intend to push back to. So it can lead you to kind of forget that adding another remote is as easy as a git command, git remote add, and then put the URL to that. And now you can push and pull from both places. Very valuable in the open source side, but not something I think you're going to do at work a lot. I'm not trying to tell you shouldn't learn about it, just not super important right now. So let's take a look at what's happened.
Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
You skimmed over something pretty quickly. I just want to call back to it if you don't mind. Like that little UI magic, if you will, right? Is really what it is. It's UI magic. This little pretend folder structure that you're seeing there in GitKraken.
Right.
It's such a cool feature because Git itself doesn't really have folders.
Right.
I wish it did. Like I wish there was a sort of built-in way. But look at this. We can solve that problem with a UI that just sort of, I guess, is grouping these things together and just pretending they're in folders, right? And I also want to point out, Chris, you talked about an interesting strategy about using the username and then the different, like a pattern for doing things, right? That's not a requirement, right? That's an idea you have. Like my company, we have different conventions as well. You want to try to pick something that works, for your group, but that's not a requirement. But that's a pretty good example. We often, use like feature branches and stuff like that, and there's different teams. And there's a lot of stuff, but I would like to do them not even at the branch level, but at the repo level itself, having folders, because we have, gosh, so many. So would this tool do? You're in.
This is source tree
repo here.
The main reason I brought up source tree is, hey, I just went ahead and did a tour of Git IDEs, so I've got many more installed on my system. But source tree is very popular, and source tree also takes that same convention and turns it into a folder structure, right? So to your point, Chris, Andy, yeah. Your point was that.
No, go ahead, finish that, and then I'll make.
Your point was that this is something the IDEs take and they run with it. To say that Git kind of gets it, I actually ran into something today that gave me pause and made me think, I think Git sort of understands this. We're not going to run into it tonight, but it was a naming thing with branches where I went, oh, there's actually an invalid branch name that I wouldn't have expected. I learned that today when I was kind of prepping some of this stuff.
But
anyways,
I guess what I want to add, what's that?
No, I said, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I want to know is what you're talking about is this mocking of folders at the branch level. But what about at the repository level? Like when I go and look at my organization, if you will, right? I think that's a common term that Git would say. You have an organization. In that organization, you might have 100 repos, right? Do any of these tools put that kind of pretend folder structure at that level?
So now what you're talking about is the features of a service. And I'm going to use that term service to describe right. GitHub, Azure repos, Bitbucket, GitLab, all of those. And the reason I call it a service is because Git is a version control tool. GitHub is a company that got huge building a website to help store and manage your use of Git, right? And all these other services do that. They're services. If somebody wanted to build that folder structure into this view, they could. Like nothing would stop them. I just don't know that generally we're seeing what you're saying. That sounds like a tour of services, really take a deep dive into these different ones. Yeah. I'm not trying to deflect your question. I actually don't think I know enough of the answer.
So in an ID like Git Kraken, you're using it at the repo level. But is there another screen where you go back and say, I'm logged into GitHub. I want to see all my GitHub repos, not my branches, but my repos? Or is it just made you do them one-offs and you just clone them into this, or well, it's going to show your local works.
I think that you can do what you're saying. So, like, see how I can create groups of repositories, and then in this case,
that's interesting.
I'm going to be honest here. I have not explored this feature, and it might be super powerful. And I don't know what to say about it really.
That's okay. It's just an idea.
But, yeah. So here's a pretty simple repo, right? This project has just started. I tried to keep this stuff pretty small. Let's ignore what I've been working on for a second and check out main. I just because I just wanted to see. This is what the team thinks the state of the world is. These 3 commits. How do I know that? Because if we head back and take a look, we have one branch, main, just one branch. And if I click on it to look at the history, I used to actually find it easier to find the history. Why am I struggling? 3 commits. I wish there was something that said, do I really have to click on this number 3? Yes. So as far as the server, the golden repo is concerned, this is the state of the world. Just an initial commit, basic index HTML, and then another commit. You can see that visualized here in my local Git Kraken tool. If I hide the view of the branch I'm working on, if I hide it, which is a feature I really love about this IDE, this GUI, because that way I can get out of my way what I'm not interested in looking at. So there's a requirement that I create a feature branch to work, and I have done that. I said git branch user/cgomez/add fan survey, and then so actually, to be fair, the fan survey is my work. That really isn't the state of the project that's up there right now. So I jumped the gun a little bit. That was my work. I was supposed to add the fan survey. As you can see, this is the current site. This is the site that's been published, that's CI/CD. It's out on the web servers. But I'm working on this feature, and the feature is called Add a Fan Survey. So I've created this branch. Now, it just so happens no one else has committed to main. I know that because of what we saw up on GitHub. And I also know that because if I go to the command line and I say git fetch, and I'm even going to go ahead and add, I don't have to do this, but if I say git fetch origin, what I'm saying here, and hopefully this is something maybe that people might learn, is I want to say, go out to Origin's repo, go out to that server, and I want you to find out everything that's happened since we last asked. Now, we're up to date in this scenario. We're completely up to date. Nothing changed. We didn't see any new branches get added here. Maybe teammates are working. We didn't see it. Maybe they're all on vacation. I don't know. This first example is simple on purpose. It's simple on purpose. So, if I were now going to try to get this into my team's repo, I would probably go open a pull request, right? I would go open a pull request. I have a branch. I have not published that branch. That means that here on my local machine, I see I have a user C Gomez add fan survey and a main, and Git Kraken identifies that with this picture of my laptop to say local branch. These are commits that you have here, you have these 5 commits and these 2 sticky notes pointing to them. As you all know, I like to think of branches as post-it notes that you tag to a commit. But in Origin, we only have the 3. So I need to create a pull request. Now, I can't create that pull request here on GitHub because GitHub only knows about the first branch main. That's it. That's all it knows about. It says there's one branch. So I have to publish this branch. How do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways to do it. If you're working in Visual Studio Code, which let's bring up Visual Studio Code. They have, I switched to the main. Let me switch back to my branch. Okay. I am currently on the main branch, which is just a fancy technique word for meaning I did git checkout main. When you are on a branch, the next commit you make will be the descendant of this commit that the branch is pointing to, and then we will rip up the branch sticky note and we will move it to that commit. So it'll start diverging. We're not going to do that here, but I really need to check out my branch. I can do that several ways. I can just double click and get cracking. I can just do that. Or I can say git checkout user /C Gomez /add fan survey. And it says I've switched to that branch. If you're hip on the new git commands, I could have also said git switch user /git C Gomez /. I do actually recommend you start getting used to switch. I know I'm not because I have so many years of muscle memory, but I'm trying. So the status now is that I am on the branch user C Gomez add fan survey, and there's nothing to commit. The working tree is clean. Now, I only show you Git Kraken because I think seeing the commit graph is super important. We're going to do the work here at the command line. You could
maybe you're responding to.
I wasn't actually responding, but maybe that was dumb luck.
Chat. Yeah. There's a comment in chat. I don't know how to say this. TH3R1Z. That's probably the run. I don't know what it is. Maybe the runs. I don't know what that is. It might be the runs. That would be interesting. Saying we're dealing more with Git Kraken than Git, and I responded in the chat saying you're using that to sort of visualize change,
what's
right?
happening.
To demonstrate things.
Yep.
But these are really Git features under the covers, except what's that tricky folder thing we were talking about. That's Git Kraken.
Yeah. What's tricky about this is a lot of people never use the command line. So if I show stuff in the command line, they're lost. A lot of people do use Visual Studio Code, and here's a publish branch button. I could click that button. I could also push from here, and it will publish the branch, publish. But let's see what the command line says. If I say git push, Git is going to stop me, and it's going to say, hold on a second. You didn't tell me about an upstream branch, also known as a tracking branch. And the reason I give you those two terms, if you start reading Git documentation, you're going to see both of those terms. So you have this branch user C Gomez add fan survey, but when I went to look at Origin, I don't see one there. So tell me, would you like to create that and set it as the upstream, the tracking branch? And it even tells you how to do it, which is really cool. I like that you just get the answer. I can't tell you how many times I just go ahead and do this, and I cut and paste it, and then I hit enter. I do that all the time.
I feel like they could almost add a thing that just says yes or no, and it does it for you.
Yeah, right. I mean, they could, I suppose.
It's not that
right?
big a deal. You copy and paste it, and you got the text. So what you're doing now is you're basically telling the server, hey, this local branch, I need you to track it, right?
Right.
Is that what you're doing?
Well, it's actually the other way around. What really happens is I push these commits with a branch name. The Origin remote is going to create that branch. And then locally, I'm going to track that branch using a branch of the same name.
Yeah.
The reason why that's only marginally... No, go ahead, Andy.
It's just a good example, Chris, where like what I said, maybe kind of makes sense, but because I don't really know the way it works under the covers, and you're saying that like, well, this is what really happens.
Wow.
And it's a subtle difference, but it's kind of an important difference, right? And I appreciate that.
The reason it's subtle is because other people may never bother to fetch the branch and bring it down, so they're not tracking it. And if you want to be really like tough on yourself, you can fetch a branch and give it a different name. something I've done rarely, but I have done it. And I could call the branch Eat It Joe's and then say, go track user C Gomez add fan survey. That's hard to maintain as a mental model, but it's nothing stopping you from doing it. So let's go ahead and do this. I have now pushed my commits. Notice the terminology I'm using. I have pushed these 2 commits, which just happen to be direct descendants of what was the main branch's head commit. I have pushed those up. What's kind of nice is that GitKraken shows me with this little sticker. It shows me, hey, yeah, this is up on Origin. Origin's user C Gomez add fan survey is pointing right here. But let's not take that word for it. Let's go look. Oh, GitHub's telling me recent pushes less than a minute ago. Awesome. There, if I hit refresh here, I'm going to see that there are now 2 branches in this repo. It even kind of recognizes that this is my branch, which is not really true. They call it mine because I updated it. Git doesn't think of any branch as mine. You could pull it and push to it, unless we have some kind of protection in place. You could pull the branch, push to it, and I'd be like, whoa, what are you doing? But yeah, generally no one's going to touch this. That's why we marked it the way we did, and why a lot of companies have that particular policy.
Naming convention.
Right, or some kind of naming convention. So now we're going to do a pull request. Let's go. I know this seems really slow. We'll go quicker. Let's open a pull request. The pull request is created the fan survey, right? It's already telling me, hey, it's really easy to merge these branches. Of course it is. The 2 commits are right on top of the previous 3. It's a perfect straight line. The commit graph is super clean. There's no need to worry about trying to merge two roads of commits together. This is going to be a piece of cake. Create the pull request. The pull request is now created. GitHub does a quick check to say, are there any conflicts? Nope, no conflicts. If there were conflicts that were created later because this pull request like hangs out for a while, maybe it gets really controversial and we talk about it. Well, I might come back here later and it's going to say, well, now you can't automatically merge. There's conflicts to resolve. You're going to have to add another commit to this branch that will resolve that conflict. But this is a piece of cake. So I imagine, I don't know about a lot of you in the audience. If you're the person who gets to push this button, if you're a maintainer in an open source project, you do. But if you're the kind of person that likes to contribute to open source, you may not get to push this button very often. At work, you might get to. Most of us might just push merge pull request. There are some different ways you can pull request. There's like, hey, you could squash the 2 commits into one and then merge it, or we could even rebase the commits, which wouldn't do anything in this scenario, and add to the base branch. I don't really care about those features right now. I think most people just click merge pull request. I think that's what most people do. So let's click it. We're going to confirm the merge. Okay. The pull request was merged and closed. And they even offer to me, if you want to, you can delete the branch. Now, that might scare some of you out there, but I'm going to show you why GitHub is saying you can delete the branch. No big deal. So let's do it. Let's delete it. Okay. This branch is now no longer available in the repository. If I had a teammate like you or Rich, Andy or Rich, and you fetched right now and you said, oh, Chris said he had this user C Gomez add fan survey and you tried to pull it right now, it'd be like, I don't know, it's gone. That might scare you. So let's go take a look at the code real quick and let's look at the commits, and here they are. What's interesting though is, remember how you saw 5 commits in my visual graph? There's a 6th one here on GitHub. This is called a merge commit. I do not particularly like this view because I don't think it really helps you understand what a merge commit and why we have an extra commit. So let's, if you'll indulge me, even folks in the audience who want to learn the command line, let's go back to GitKraken. Now, GitKraken, I don't see that 6th commit. That's because I have turned off a feature of GitKraken called auto-fetch that basically, quite frankly, is constantly fetching the repo. SourceTree does it. GitHub Desktop does it. A lot of them do it. I I turn it off, not so much because like I like pain. It's because I teach people a lot. So by leaving it off, I can now teach the fetching concept. I don't see that 6th commit because I haven't fetched origin. I haven't asked Git, can you go find out what's happened since the last time I asked you? So let's go to the command line and let's say git fetch. I can optionally say git fetch origin. I don't have to because since origin is the remote I cloned from, it's assumed. So I'm just going to say git fetch. And I get a little bit of blurb here. I bet you've never read this. It says, hey, I found one object that I needed to learn about. And I unpacked it. And basically, your main 8F29A4A has a new commit on it at origins main FB3227F. I'm not asking you to memorize those numbers. Let's go take a look at what GitKraken sees. And GitKraken says, sure enough, here's main 8F29A4. That's what it told me. It told me your main 8F29A4A. There's some new commits on that. Goes all the way up to FB3227F. I mean, there could be hundreds of commits in between, but in this case, there it is, FB3227. Each of these bubbles is a commit, which is a complete contained snapshot of your entire repository. And what GitHub did to bring these branches together is it said, well, I'm going to create a merge commit where one of its ancestors will be your final commit in your branch, and the other ancestor will be the final commit in what was main. Now, what's interesting is, remember this was a straight line just a second ago? Because I built directly on top of main. I didn't have anybody else come along. Nobody else came along and created branches and committed to main. So my latest commits were a straight line. But GitHub, by choosing to create a merge commit with 2 parents, has created a bend in the road. These commits do still track in a straight line, but then at the same time, here's a tracking. I don't mean to use the word tracking in terms of GitHub. Here's a descendant that also descends from add basic all about hockey. This could have been what's called a fast forward merge. But by default, GitHub will create a merge commit even if it does not have to. It will create one, and it will have 2 parents, one being the tip of the branch that you're proposing in the pull request, and the other being the branch that you're proposing to receive the changes.
So, Chris, let's see if I just understand this correctly, because you talked about that fast forward merge, right? And I think is a fast forward merge when it pretty much says, well, listen, the add fan survey is based upon main anyway, and there hasn't been any changes, so I don't need to merge it. I'm just going to sort of like make it the main or something like that, right?
Yes.
That's what a fast forward merge is, right?
Yes.
But instead, even though it could have done that, right? Because
yes.
it wouldn't matter. There would be no difference in the outcome.
Right.
But you're saying GitHub did a real merge, or whatever it would be called, like a normal
commit.
merge.
It created a merge commit.
A merge commit.
Yeah.
Right. I like that. I like this visualization, right? GitKraken's not the only thing that provides this kind of visualization, but my point is, if it could have done what is it called? A
fast forward. Yeah.
Fast forward. Sorry.
Fast forward merge. Yeah.
If it had done a fast forward commit, then it sort of would have looked like that branch was never there, I think. Right. And I like to see that it was there. I like to see, that where these things came from. Like, to me, that's helpful. I like it that way.
Yeah. And I think people have different points of view. There's no real difference. There's something else you might not have noticed yet. Remember on GitHub, it showed that there's only one branch in the repository. But when you take a look at what, and again, you can do this from the command line.
Because you deleted the other branch, right? You deleted
it was deleted.
And fan server.
Right. And I want to make it clear that this is not a GitKraken feature. We could do all this from the command line, but I feel like this visual, I hope it's more helpful than us like typing out commands. My GitKraken is telling me that remote still has add fan survey because it doesn't know. I didn't prune it. basically, there's a feature that you have to run yourself to prune branches that no longer exist in the remote. I do think that if I turned auto fetch on, that I think there might be a checkbox to auto prune. I don't remember. I think I can right click here. Maybe I can't. Maybe I can't right click and prune. So let's go to the command line, because this is about Git. So if I say Git remote origin prune, let's dissect that statement for a second. Git remote origin prune is saying, let's use the git remote command. I might be wrong about that. It might be git remote prune origin. It'll yell at me if I'm wrong. So git remote, let's prune, and let's prune based on origin. What does that mean? That means let's go ask origin. So what are your branches? And then I'm going to delete the ones that you don't know about anymore, because you don't know about them. So I'm going to run it. And it says, origin doesn't have add fan survey anymore. So I pruned it. And visually, let's take a look, and it's gone. Gone. Now, I still have my local copy. My local branch. Remember, I believe branches are nothing more than Post-it notes. Imagine this is a stack of Post-it notes. I think they're nothing more than Post-it notes. And there is one Post-it note stuck to that commit right now. It's mine. I wrote it, and it's sticking to this commit. It's the local commit. Now, I can't delete a branch that is on a checked out. I've checked out this branch. I can't delete that. I need to go check out a different branch first. So if I say git checkout main.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because I thought you pruned.
I did.
It would have deleted add fan survey.
It deleted.
That was the whole point of the pruning, wasn't it?
The pruning was to remove it from Origin's list of branches.
Oh, okay. Not to clean it up. So there's a couple steps you got to do here.
It can be a couple steps.
Yeah,
right now, a lot of these tools.
By the way.
Okay, I'll take a look. A lot of these tools do this stuff for you. So I have disabled a lot of those features so that we can watch the Git flow, so to speak, not to be confused with Git flow, which is an actual term.
Right.
Let's take a look at some of these things. So, what do we have? Does it prune all the other branches or the one you're currently on? That's a great question. I don't think I got it up there. There we go. So, yes, if there multiple branches that no longer exist on the remote are pruned, but notice that they're only pruned out of your copy of origin. It will not delete them. Git does not delete your local branches. Now, that's a tricky topic. That's something a lot of people don't realize, is that you're in control of your repository. This branch is named user C Gomez add fan survey. Do you know what the real name of this branch is? GitKraken's helping me here, by the way. The real name of this branch is origin/main. That's the real name of the remote. It's a sticky note, origin/main, that is pointing to this commit, FB3227. So there's a sticky note right now, origin/main. Remember how we spent some time looking in the .git folder last time? We would find a remote in there, origin/main. We would find that in there, and it would be pointing to FB3227. So there's a little bit of a divergence right now. My local main branch thinks that it's pointing. It thinks that the head is 8F29A4, but Origin has it further up. Git refers to this as being behind. So if I say git status, it says your branch is behind. And look at the terminology should all make sense now. You are on branch main, your local branch main. Your branch is behind origin/main by 3 commits. Oh, and I can fast forward it. All you have to do to fast forward it is git pull. That's what it's telling you. Like this, it's telling you what to do, which is cool. I like that. So what does fast forwarding mean? Fast forwarding means that I have a sticky note that says main on it. I'm going to pick it up off the commit, and I'm going to move it up to where origin/main is and stick it so that they're both side by side. There's going to be a sticky note that says origin/main and a sticky note that says main. When I do this talk live, I actually write on sticky notes and I tape them to the whiteboard.
That's
so
cool.
So how do I do that? All I have to do, there's actually more than one way to do this, but I'm going to say git pull. Git pull is a command that does multiple things. This is why some people like me say, hey, as long as you know what they are, git pull will fetch. And then it will also, if you have some outstanding commits that it doesn't know about, it's going to try to fetch, it's going to try to pull them, it's going to try to it's going to try to resolve everything. So some people don't, they get to know pull and they're like, I don't know, do I really need pull? In this case, because I've already fetched origin main, all it's going to do is fast forward the sticky note. It's going to pick it up, move the branch pointer up 3 commits, and that's going to be it. So I actually don't even have to use pull. I don't. I could say git merge origin main. And even just to protect myself, Chris, I could say fast forward only.
Well, so most likely if you were in this situation, you would have done git fetch and then git merge, but you already did git fetch, right? That's what you said.
Right.
Because I already did. Pull kind of does fetch and then merge.
It does fetch and then pull. Saying? Yes.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that if I really wanted to be safe and make sure that I knew precisely that I was only going to get what I see on the screen, I could do that. I could say merge, origin merge, but only if it's a fast forward merge. If it's not, blow up.
And why do you want it to blow up if it's not a fast forward merge?
Because perhaps in the time, and I'm not trying to say that I do this, I don't, but perhaps I say to myself, you know, I really do want to move up here. I want to move main up here. But I don't know that other people have been committing while I've been sitting here staring at this. And for whatever reason, I don't want that stuff. I don't know why I don't want it. Usually we do want a fast forward merge to keep it up to date. That's typically how I operate too. I keep main up to date and I work on branches that I merge back into main. So there isn't much real reason for even me, someone who really knows what's going on. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this. I just want you to understand that.
So fast forward only the same thing. It's kind of like a way of saying, if it's safe, if nothing else has gotten mucked up, then go ahead and do it.
It's saying that as long as it's a fast forward, do it. If it doesn't turn out to be one, don't do it. So first, let's just do a git pull. Let's just do git pull. And let's see what git tells us. Git says, I have now updated from 8F29 all the way up to FB322. I picked the sticky note up from here and I moved it here. Oh, by the way, it was a fast forward. And fast forward is just a fancy term. I can't show you because I'm not standing at a projector where I could show you peeling the commit off of add basic all about hockey and moving it up to merge pull request 1. But that's what happened. It picked the sticky note up and moved it up. Git even told me that's what it did.
Being changed.
Yeah. Right. Now, because it used the word fast forward. Now, if it didn't say that, it would say merged. It would be like, whoa, there were some commits you didn't know about and I merged them in. But let me put things back just so we can watch that again. If I say git, and I think I'm right about this, if I say git merge origin main fast only, my prediction is we're going to see the exact same output. Exact. Okay, updating from 8F29 to FB322, it's a fast forward, identical output. So this was shorthand for this, except without the fast forward only. Because if there were merge commits to bring in, that command would have done it, except that I put in a little safety net that said, no, I don't want you to do anything I'm not ready for. I'm going to tell you right now, I do not do this. I know because I normally only pull from main, that's normally the only branch I pull from. I don't do this. I don't sit here and go like, well, I'm going to make sure that I only do a merge, right? But I kind of wanted everyone to see, what really is happening here. Try to see if there's anything else I should answer.
Yeah, to see what's really happening under the covers, right? I like that.
Now, if you don't mind, I have some magic. This is some stuff I was working on. I'm going to reset this scenario completely.
Well, can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
And maybe it doesn't matter, right? you still haven't deleted the local branch.
I had not deleted the local branch. You're right. I had not done that. We'll
I
get
still
to do that
see it
in a
now. I
second.
don't know if that matters.
Well, so I hit a reset button, and that reset button sure did a lot. Not only did it put things back to the beginning, if we go head
I
out,
see that. Yeah,
we're like it resets up here at GitHub too. So it allows me to, well, that sounds like a show. Let me tell you. Don't get me wrong, it's not a secret. I'm not trying to say like, oh my gosh, I did some thinking about it and I came up with this batch file that essentially this thing puts everything back the way it started, and it does it by using a third repository. So there's a third repository with branches that I check them out, I force push them, I do all kinds of stuff to get the repo up at GitHub looking the way it did before.
And that's what, so you can repeat this demo over and over again.
So I can repeat the demo.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that I can show you.
We would do at work.
No, you would not do that at work. However, it gave me an idea for a website that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. So why did I do that? I did that because you saw how a pull request will be merged at work. And I promise you, most of us working are probably going to do it that way. But I want to contrast that with how Git normally thinks. So here we are. I am checked out on my feature branch user/cgomez/add fan survey. And I am now going to merge. I'm going to merge it into main, but we're not using GitHub for this. We're going to do it Git's way. So let me check out main. I am not checked out on main right now. I am checked out on the branch. So let me check out main. Why am I checked out on main? Because I want to merge the feature branch into main. I always want to merge towards me. So if I say git merge, and I know because we all use pull requests at work, this is not how you will do it, but I want you to see that Git actually, its preferred way of doing things is opposite of GitHub's and Azure DevOps and Bitbucket's and everybody else's preferred way of doing things, unless you go in and change the settings, which you can do. So let me say git merge, and let's see what it does. It says, oh, why don't I just fast forward? Like, I don't need to create a merge commit. It's a straight line of commits. So Git, from the command line, Git wants to fast forward. That's what it wants to do. And let's go take a look at that visually. That's what it did. It picked up my local sticky note, and now both these two sticky notes, the one for the branch and the one for my local main branch, are both pointing to the same commit. I could now push this, and that would fast forward this sticky note. The problem is, on most Git repos, I do have push rights here because otherwise I can't do the magic. I should not have the ability to push directly to main, right? That should be prohibited. We're going to use pull requests for that. So I only show you this because I want you to see Git thinks differently. Git prefers a fast forward. I don't think that's bad. It means that you can say git pull, you can fast forward, you can pick your main branch up every morning and just keep rolling with it. Just make sure you're always working on feature branches, right?
Do you think that's because, and I'm only using the visualization as an example here, right? Which Git Kraken does a good job of visualizing these things for us, right? But
right.
With a fast forward, you see that straight line, right? And with a merge commit, you see that there was a commit. You see that there was a divergence and it came back, and it wasn't a divergence in this case, but it branched off and it came back. And I wonder if GitHub and other tools, even though Git wants to do it one way, these tools are doing it because users find that easier to follow and understand, and it like sort of shows a little bit more of maybe, I think one way of saying it is Git's doing what's right because it can be a fast forward merge. It should be. But the other tools are saying, even though it would be right to do the other way, users think this is what happened because that's what we did. We think we merged it, so we want to still see that merge.
So
Does that make any sense?
My belief is that it's more an accident of history than it is deliberate choices. So We talked a little bit about the history last time. Remember, Git is the open source tool Linus Torvalds created to manage Linux. In Linus Torvalds' world, the repository that matters is his. So there is no GitHub. There is no Bitbucket.
Yeah.
They didn't exist. When you, Andy, a trusted committer, somebody that he says, when Andy says that this branch is good, I believe him because I've pulled from him before and he's already vetted the work that all the other hundreds of committers have submitted to him. I trust him. So when I pull from him, I'm the one that matters. So what do I need a merge commit for? I just fast forward it. Right. Andy built right on top of main. So it's an accident of history, in my opinion. Now, if we talk about GitHub invented, for all intents and purposes, there may be people who argue with me, GitHub invented the pull request. The pull request is not a construct of Git. In Git, I pull directly from your server, Andy, and you pull directly from servers that other people ran right on their Linux boxes. But in the GitHub world, one server matters a little bit more than the others. So the pull request feature was created as a way for me to say, hey, I got a branch here that has some commits that can be merged into your branch here. And I'm happy to do that. But here's a space for us to discuss and examine and figure out whether or not we want to do it. And then we'll go ahead and say yes. And then we'll do that merge and we'll create the merge commit just so that way there's a permanent record that this came from a pull request. I think that is the accident of history on the GitHub side and the service side.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't mean to. Let's go on to another example just because it takes a long time to run through examples, right? But it's okay. I don't mind that we stop and talk about it. And I love the comment we got here because this is absolutely true. And it's entirely possible. I sort of touched on this, even though I didn't say it directly, is that we are not tonight talking about an open source. Oh, I need to get rid of that topic. I'm sorry about that. So that way we can see that nice.
Yeah, it's like covering the.
Yep.
You just have to change the Z index or something like that, I think.
So
that's
the
good.
Comment, second remote is a good thing to cover sometime for open source work. Absolutely true. I feel like that's a different conversation. I wish it wasn't, of how do you work with Git open source? Because there's other things to manage there. Managing the upstream. Wow, what did he just say? Managing the upstream, right? Keeping it up to date. And I'd love to get into that. But, we spend a lot of time, and I think this is good, really digging in here. And my hope is that people in chat are saying, yeah, you know what? I learned something that I didn't know before, and I hope it helps. So let's
well, why don't we? I'll ask that. I mean, if people don't mind, throw in the chat if you're learning stuff new. Let us know. We do want to know that stuff. It's helpful to us. So if this is new to you, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
So my script isn't perfect. I have to manually delete a couple things here, or one thing. Okay, that's pretty good. Not bad. Let's see if it did it. Let's see how we did out here on GitHub. We still have the one branch. Does that make sense? Yeah, we do have the one branch. Okay, cool. Awesome. So awesome. I appreciate that from Dark Elder. Sometimes I worry this is a little bit too much of the plumbing, but I hope that even if it provides some clarity, that the next time you say, hey, I don't exactly know what's happened in my Git repo, instead you're going to say like, no, I do know what happened. So this was my second example. And as you can see, I've got a coworker now, right? Because
got a coworker. Who's that? Is that a duck? I can't tell what that is. It's too small on my screen. Little icon. That's a dog. Oh, okay.
Some people might even recognize this little character. Be interesting to see if anybody recognizes the character. Yeah, it kind of looks familiar, doesn't it? I wish I had something to give away for the first person who recognizes it. So here is a coworker who has done some work. Now, to Andy's point, this is the state of the repo as I see it after I did a git fetch. So I came in the morning. When I went last night, when I went home, it looked like this. I was adding some code. In fact, let's take a look at what the website looks like.
Real quick, did you see the chat, Sky Hoshi?
I'm sure somebody got it, right? Sorry, that I need like one more monitor, I think.
Oh, yes. Right. You can't see it.
Absolutely.
Joe Simple. It's we got a winner. Ding.
Yeah, everything is fine, right?
Where's my? We got a winner.
Nice job. So in this particular example, I'm adding to the list of equipment. Okay, so I'm adding to the list of equipment. No big deal. Let's take a look at what the graph looks like at the moment. And at the moment, when I went home Friday night, I was adding commits to add some equipment to the list. So to me, I said, wow, pretty straightforward. I can't wait to come in Monday and merge this. This is going to be an easy merge. But wow, they hired somebody and that person went to work. And so I came in and I do git fetch. I do a git fetch. And why do I do a git fetch? Because I want to see, what else has happened on Origin since I was here. And it turns out my new coworker seems to have added a few commits and even merged the branch into the GitHub repo. The branch is gone, update equipment, because he probably hit the delete branch button like we've been talking about. But here's the merge commit, merge branch, update equipment. And here are his 2 commits where he did some work in index.html and he did some work. Oh, he updated the site.css. How interesting. Now, this was the only thing I couldn't replicate 100%. I couldn't replicate his pull request through Magic. So I'm sorry that I'm not able to show his pull request closed. This was the best I could do by sort of faking these commits. But this is what you would see. It would say merge branch. It would probably say merge PR number 2. It's probably what it would say. Merge PR number 2, update equipment. But the branch would be gone because he would have clicked delete branch. And then we have the 2 commits here. And here's my work. My work is now on this little path. It's on a path even further off to the right. So, well, I mean, my work is done. I should probably merge. I should probably open a pull request, right? So here's where things get kind of interesting. Let's see. Hold on. I'm missing my other screen here. Okay. All right. So there's a couple ways I could go about this. I could just open the pull request. In fact, let's do that. Let's just open the pull request. I need to publish this branch. So let's publish the branch, which I will do at command line. You're free to use your favorite tool, but I am on user C Gomez add to items needed. So let me do my lazy git push. And it's like, oh man, you really need to type this whole long thing, which you don't. You can say -u instead of -- set upstream, but I just cut and paste. I'm a little lazy. So I do that. I pushed it up there, creates the tracking branch. All that stuff happens. And if we take a look, I can see that the little DevTalkShow symbol is its way of telling me your branch is now up on Origin. So what would I do next? I would go to GitHub. That's what I would do next. I go to GitHub, and here GitHub's even awesome. GitHub says, hey, this branch add to items needed had a recent push. Do you want to compare and pull request? Yeah, let's do that. So I compare and pull request. Uh-oh. Wow. Can't automatically merge. It turns out there's a conflict here. And what kind of bums me out is I feel like I found out about this conflict kind of late. That's my opinion. I feel like I don't want to know about it now. Does this ever happen to you?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I want to do a couple things. I want to deal with this, and the way you would have to deal with it. Do you know how you have to deal with this? Like what you need to do? I'm just curious what you think. I should ask how do you deal with this?
I open up a chat window and then I say Chris Gomez or at Space Shot, right? And I'm like, hey, dude, that's what I do. Rich, what do you think?
I'm right there with you. But if we don't have Space Shot on speed dial on chat, what would we do, right?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people do is they might panic. They might close the pull request. But let's talk about what you might do if you have a little seasoning. And it's not because I'm insulting anybody who panics here. Trust me, I panicked. Mm-hmm. One thing you can do to resolve this. I'm
usually kind of nervous at this point. Like I gotta fix this whole thing or whatever.
Yeah, and I wish that people weren't. But what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to come up with a commit that brings this together in a way that GitHub says like, okay, fine. So the question is like, how do I go about doing that? And let me show you the way I like to do it. Is I say, well, what I really am going for here is I want this merged into main. That's what I really want to happen. I just wanted GitHub to do it for me. So I think what I'll do is I think I'll try merging into main here. I'm going to give it a shot. But, you know, I may not be as comfortable with the reset command as Chris is. So since I'm not, I'm going to make a temporary branch. And I don't care what I call it. I'll throw it away later. So at the command line, git status says your branch user C Gomez add to items needed is up to date with Origin's version of the branch. So I'm going to say git. It's okay for me to just check out. I'm going to create a new branch. By the way, you can use the switch command for this. I just don't know how to use it for this, so I apologize. I think it's switch-c, but since I'm not sure, this is the way that it worked before we ever had git switch and git restore. Is you're saying git checkout and create a branch, and then you name the branch. I could do it as a two-step process, so let's do it as a two-step process. Git branch, try things out. I don't care what I call it. This is something I'm going to work on. So let me go ahead and create that branch. Visually, let's take a look. Here it is. All Git did is it grabbed that pad of sticky notes and it tried things out and it took it and it stuck it to the same commit. And that's why we see one commit, one sticky note pointing here, another sticky note pointing here. There's 3 sticky notes pointing to added more equipment and announcement about upcoming map. But maybe you don't have Git Kraken. So now I need to check out my branch. Why do I have to check it out? Well, when you check out, you're making a deal with Git. The deal you're making is the stuff I do now, apply this sticky note to it. That way I don't go screw up the other sticky notes. They can stay right where they were. That's why I like using this term sticky note. I'm telling Git, move this one around. So now
it's almost like saying, maybe it's like, check out the sticky note, like put it in your hand and hold on to it. This is the one I want you to hold on to because this is the one you're going to be moving, right? I like that.
So now this might seem a little weird, but I'm going to head over to main. Some people might not do this step. Some people might just git merge main. Probably okay. It's probably okay. Maybe I should just do it. I don't know. But I tend to be the type that says, well, let me check out main. And let's go see which main it checked out. It checked out mine. Oh, wait a second. I never pulled main. I never brought my local main up to date. Now, if I don't have Git Kraken, how do I know that? It tells me switch to branch main, but your branch is behind origin main by 3 commits, and it can be fast forwarded. So I want to do that. I want to do that. So git pull. Why do I want to do that? Because over on GitHub, my proposal in my pull request is to move this branch into main. That's the proposal I'm making. So if I don't get up to date with GitHub's version of main, I'm never going to get this right. So now I've done that. That you see the sticky note moved from here to here. My local main has moved up. Okay, now let's try merging my branch in. I'm going to get a conflict, but let's try merging it in so I can see precisely what the problem is. And Git tells me I'm auto merging index.html conflict. There's a merge conflict in index.html. I failed. So fix the conflict and commit the result. This is the important language right here. Remember, commits are immutable. Git doesn't want you to fix the commit from the past. You can't do that. It's immutable. You can't change it. You need to supply a new commit with the changes that will now let things merge harmoniously. You have to do that. Can you do it with a tool? Of course you can. We're not going to do it with a tool. We're going to do it the most basic way. If you're sitting here if you use Visual Studio Code automatically starts bringing up stuff to help you. But I don't even want to use Visual Studio Code in this case. I want to, let me double check. There's index.html right there. I'm going to bring up good old Notepad. Because remember, Git was used by Linux hackers with their command line tools like VI, probably VI, maybe Emacs. There might have been some that used Emacs. I'm sure none of them use Nano, and they probably hate that I like Nano. They're like, you must be a Windows guy. So what does Git actually do to the file that has a conflict? You may not know this, but Git starts writing stuff up in it. It came down here and it said, so head, the branch you're on, main, it had these lines. And user C Gomez add to items needed, it had these lines. I don't know what to do. So my question to you, you may not know the answer, is what are you supposed to do?
You're asking me? I'm sorry, I'm looking at chat. So
oh no, I think there's a good point in there.
Chat.
Like the and we'll get to the chat. Like the chatter says, almost always rebase. Guess what? I always rebase as well. But the reason I bring this up is that if I start with rebase, I lose the audience, right? So let me start with what you probably
Chris
are
is telling
doing.
a story.
Yeah.
You're telling a story here.
Let me start with what you probably are doing. So, since you are probably using GitHub and seeing that scary X, what are you supposed to do? And well, Git is asking you to fix this file. Git is not asking you to leave it this way. In fact, what it really wants you to do is it wants you to get rid of this garbage. This is to help you understand what came from where. And it wants you to fix this code so that it's correct. Now, in this case, it's okay to put it all here, but what if referee was wrong? Like referee's not equipment.
Sometimes it's there twice, right? Sometimes both users added it. That's something you see a lot, right?
Or right. So here's something you may not realize. Git actually doesn't care what I commit here. It's going to take my word for it. So I can get rid of goaltender. I can go one step further, do something crazy, and I can get rid of hockey and change it to basketball. And I can save this file. And I have gotten rid of all of the little Git-isms, right? I've saved this file. Now let's come back to Git status. And Git says, well, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, right, this is a time, like you're making a point that you can do that.
Yeah, right.
But this is a time, like as developers, even when we're making changes, we see something else and we're always like, let's fix that. This is a time not to do that, right?
Oh, I agree with
you. To avoid,
I agree with you.
You know,
the only reason why you might have to is, let's say the merge conflict shows that there's a problem in a variable declared earlier up, and you got to go fix that. Like of course, right.
Sometimes.
So the point is, yes, fix the conflict. It doesn't mean that you can only address the stuff that Git has fenced off. You can do anything you want. You can delete the file. Git does not care, because what Git's asking you to do is to create a commit. Create a commit that solves the problem. You solve it, Andy. So we now have Git status saying you have a file here that's been modified, index.html, but it has not been staged. So let's say git add index.html, and it'll do Git status again. It has now been staged, and it says, look, all the conflicts have been fixed, but you're still in the middle of the merge. You haven't committed yet. So I can say git commit. I happen to be someone who likes to set up Visual Studio Code as an editor, so I don't do the commit right here on the command line. I get this. Why do I like this editor? Because I like trying to have a shorter headline. That's just me. I'm not going to get too much into this here. I'm going to say resolved conflict over equipment selections. And then I know that I wouldn't actually do this, but I'm going to put in that's the headline. Line 1 is the headline. But in line 3, I'm going to say also proved to the world that it's really about basketball. All right. We're having a little fun. I save this file. I close it. That's going to be the commit. And the commit says resolved conflict over equipment selections. And it created a new commit 41219D9D. What does that look like visually? Here it is. It's a merge commit with 2 parents. It's joined the branch and the previous branch of code with my branch of code. So here comes my branch of code right up here. Choo choo. And then, okay, here's this commit is the descendant. And it's also the descendant of this parent that goes around my code.
But isn't there a problem that this is on main?
Yeah, right. Right.
Because I can't commit this.
Yeah, you can't commit this. So why did I do it this way? I did it partially to show the story of okay, what does this look like to kind of resolve step by step by step by step? That's probably not what you're going to do. Now, what could you do now? There's a lot of things I could do. I could reset. I could pick up my sticky note, my local sticky note, and move it here. And why not? Why don't I just pick this up and move it here? This is what I want to commit, and I want it to be under the name user C Gomez add to items needed.
Yeah, so, I get what you're saying. Then I have a branch that I can check in, right?
Right. Now, let's say that I goofed.
Just move the sticky note?
I can move the sticky note. That? Yeah. Now, I also am going to have to move this one back. I'm going to want to move main back, but I'll leave it there for right now. So in order to move this sticky note, first I must check it out. So let's go, or I can switch to it. In fact, let me try switch. I got to start learning to use it.
What does switch do versus checkout?
So checkout has been long known to do 2 things. It doesn't really do 2 things, but that's what it seems like. It seems like it switches branches, and it also seems like it restores files. It discards the changes of files that you're working on. The reality is git checkout allows you to check any file out of any commit that you want and bring it into your branch. But most people don't use it for that purpose. So since people just didn't understand, like, I don't understand why. There's now git switch that only switches branches, and there's git restore that only restores files. They like split but you can still keep using git checkout. And my muscle memory is so ingrained that I tend to forget. So I've switched to that branch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reset it to main. Why main? Because that sticky note is pointing to the commit that I want. So I can say git reset main, and I'll even do a hard reset, which means change the files and everything. And boom. Now I have my local branch pointing where I want to, but my local main isn't really pointing where I want to. I need to get that pushed back. So I could say git, I need to check out main so that I am now on main. You really have
to, though?
Yeah, I do, because I can only reset the sticky note that I've checked out. Remember, it's the sticky note Git's holding on to.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, why do you have to
Oh, I guess main? I don't have to.
Okay. I personally, because I was thinking you could merge that try things out branch right up to the remote or whatever. I'm getting.
I don't even need try things out. Try things out is getting deleted. I don't even need it anymore.
Oh, not try things out. Sorry, the other.
And then you're correct that in this limited scenario, this is going to be moved up 1. You're right. This is going to be moved up 1, and then a pool would just move me up there anyway. But the reason why I do this at work is, man, I have a repository at work that's fast moving. And even while I'm sitting here merging pull requests, other stuff might happen on main. So I I tend to reset back to origin only because, like I said, just in the time that we're talking, there might be 2 other pull requests that get merged. That has happened.
Oh,
so I go ahead and say, you know what? I'm going to reset my local main to origin main just to get them in sync. Oh, I should have done that -- hard, which I can do. I can just do that now. So now I'm happy. I have my main synced up with origin. I have my branches in a good space, except look at that origin is still behind, and I don't even need try things out anymore. I'm not going to bother with the git command line here. I just did, for the interest of time, I'm just going to delete the branch. I'm just going to kill it in here. So I now need to come back and check out user C Gomez again. And I did do this the long way. If in chat you're saying like, wow, you really, but I hope that this is a little clearer. Now I can push this. Does it make sense why I can push this? I am on user C Gomez add to the items needed. I am 4 commits ahead of origin. I'm going to push origin. I'm going to push it up to origin. And and now they're in sync. You can see that they're in sync, both in the repo up in GitHub and my own local branch. They're in sync. We can head out to GitHub and take a look. Let me refresh here. And GitHub says, oh, I don't know what happened, but you can merge now. And we can see down here what happened. I resolved the conflict with this commit. My first 2 commits are here, and here's the work I did to resolve the conflict. That's one way to do this. I did this one way. You're going to have to push more commits on this branch. You have to. You have no choice unless you want to close the pull request and then go back to your machine. But you still got to resolve the conflicts. Like, you're not getting around that. That's going to happen.
Yeah, I think I usually end up like killing the pull request and like copying files and hold them off and then drop them back onto a new branch. Like, I don't know. It's just, I'm always hacking my way into these things, right?
Yeah, so there is some tab completion in PowerShell, also in Bash, and there is some in command. But it doesn't bother me that much. Like if I'm in Bash, I hit tab. If I don't sweat it too much, but I understand what you're saying with the long branch names. I will tell you, and again,
see what Tiwahu says.
Yeah.
Tiwahu says
Posh
we need a
Git,
T-shirt that says
I
learned about Git switch from the DevTalkShow. That's awesome. Yeah, we need merch.
So I will tell people, if you're wondering, do I use the shortcut commands here? Yeah, of course I do. But you can see I stay sharp, right? I stay sharp on the command line. I don't let the command line get away from me. So we resolved a conflict here. We could resolve it a different way. I don't know if we really want to look at this again, or if you think it makes sense to go back to start. I don't really know for sure. But we had a simple conflict because 2 people updated the same file in the same space. That's one way you end up with a conflict, right?
Right.
Where are we up on GitHub land? The pull request. I never did create the pull request, by the way, because I was sitting here waiting for the able to merge to go green. Just because I create the pull request, by the way, does not guarantee that while just in the time that I'm talking or waiting for this to be code reviewed, that somebody doesn't commit something to main that doesn't create a conflict. And then I still have to solve the problem, and I still have to update this branch. Or to your point, Andy, I could abandon the pull request and maybe start a new branch. I don't know. Branches are just sticky notes.
That wouldn't make for a good show. Yeah.
No, I think it just starts to get annoying, right? So,
yeah, totally.
The best advice to people that I have: work on feature branches, sure. But, if 2 people are going to work on the same file, that's a problem. If you're finding in your organization that you keep having conflicts, I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm willing to be wrong, that there is probably a list of files that maybe is not longer than 10, 15 files that consistently keep coming up with conflicts. Some people would call those God files or like universe files. For some reason, everything is in that
Name a
file.
few. Well, it's not even just that. No, I'm thinking about the old like CS proj files.
Oh, sure. The old CS projects were a nightmare.
You know, and web config files, or or now like any of those configuration files,
Yes.
right? But right, those
Yeah.
God files. Listen, to me, a lot of merge conflicts is the smell of not single responsibility principle, right? Or
For
other
code
solid
files,
principles, right? Like,
for code files, absolutely, right?
yeah,
CS
yeah,
Proj was
right.
out
And
of
it's
our
not always
control. We didn't, there was nothing
right.
we could do. And to be fair, I think .NET has addressed a lot of that.
Yes, definitely.
If you remember the old SSI, and when I say old, I only say this because I haven't worked with SSIS since this time period. But if you remember the old SSIS from like 2005, 2006, that designer spat out XML. And the problem is even if you changed the text in an XML in one of those package widgets, it might rewrite the XML totally differently, and it's still valid XML, but it might reorder a couple of the widgets, perfectly valid, and now it's a merge conflict, and it would drive people up the wall. The Unity game engine had the same problem. The Unity game engine, they spent years redefining their project files to avoid this merge conflict purgatory that game developers were in. Game developers refused to use version control, and not just Git, because they said if we use version control, we spend all day trying to figure out what Unity did. And I don't mean to pick on Unity, because other game engines had the same problem. They all put time into becoming source control friendly. And, remember, invented by the Linux folks, and they're writing in C. So they're like, I don't know what your problem is. But yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, we've had a long conversation, and I kind of feel like maybe we didn't get very far. There was a great Q&A that we should probably go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
But I'd like to share that as I was working on these files, in fact, would it be okay if I ran my magic like reset script? They're not perfect. They're not perfect. I sometimes have to clean up after them still, but here it is. Setup demo 2. Merge conflict.batch. This can also be a bash shell. And it's going to go out. It creates a remote golden that goes to a third repository that none of you see, that has branches pointing to commits that I then bring over, and then I delete the remote, and I delete all the temporary branches. And I came into work Monday and it looked like this. Now, it didn't fix it all. It looks like I didn't quite get this correct. So
your batch file should be called Wayback Machine kind of thing. Yeah. That's what it's doing, right? It's just pretending that we didn't spend the last 45 minutes doing this, right?
Right. And I have a mistake in that one because it should have, I see the tracking branch went away. Oh, wow. So I got a little fix to do here. But what it's going to do is going to bring it back in line. There we go. This is how we started. This is the idea. If you're familiar with Free Code Camp, Khan Academy, Microsoft Learn, these places where you interactively read some text and then you interactively code in the window, I feel like there should be a site, and I already kind of have a name for it, where you go and you register with your GitHub account and you give it some limited permissions. Don't worry, I'm not going to take anything from you. And the idea is that, Andy, you get a repository in your GitHub account that you clone just like you're at work, and it gets set up for you. You have a problem to be solved that's given to you on the website, and then the website checks to see if you solved it, and you get a little check mark, and then it does the next one. And you could repeat it as much as you want, and it's your own GitHub repository that you clone from, you work with. You want to do the open source style? Fine. Here's a repository in an account that you can't push to. You have to fork it. You have to clone it. You have to do some work, push up to your fork, create the pull request, and it double checks all the work. and says you passed or you didn't pass. It's the free code camp of GitHub, of Git, because it's not even really GitHub. It's not even GitHub. It's Git, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, wow, that sounds big. And now that I've said it out loud, like somebody, I'm going to see the investor Series A funding for someone else will come across the wire, and I'll be like, oh, well, ideas are cheap, right? Implementation is everything. So,
oh yeah.
So yeah, that's my basic idea there. What did we get here? We got a question. I do agree everything that was said here about, you need tab complete on Git branch names. I totally agree. It is really nice. You get it. You get it in PowerShell with Posh Git. You might even get it without Posh Git. I guess we could go look. Let's see.
You definitely get in PowerShell. I'm not sure if Posh Git is required. I pretty much install that right as soon as I build a new machine.
Yeah. Posh Git's one of those Git GUIs that I actually intended to include in the talk. I know that sounds funny that I said a Git GUI, but part of the reason is that if I do a talk like that, it's almost like to try to say, hey, these GUIs are nice, but it's kind of okay to learn how this stuff works, right? Did I pick the wrong one here? Sorry, I did. That's not what I meant.
I don't think it's Posh Git anymore. I think it's Oh My Posh is what it's.
Oh My Posh.
That.
Pretty sure that's what it's morphed to.
So we got this question. Hearing about strategies for keeping API keys and Kubernetes secrets out of source control. So yes, I think there's two major strategies I can offer. So let's read the question from Off the Rails Gaming. And thank you so much for joining us and asking the questions and a lot of your great commentary. I do appreciate everything you said about tab completion. People should know about this stuff. Knew most stuff so far, but did pick up a few things though. Not sure if there is QA time. I would be interested in hearing about strategies for keeping API keys and Kubernetes secrets out of source control. So, I think there's two major ones. What do you guys think? One of them is use environment variables. Read from environment. That has a downside. The moment I say that, I find that many different platforms, including, and I'm just going to pick on some, it doesn't mean I don't like them, like a Python platform like Flask or maybe Node, or will offer you the ability to not have to change your environment by using a .env file of some type. And then the bad news there is the .env file accidentally gets checked in and you've essentially done the same thing. So I'm gonna pick on what the ASP.NET Core team did. I am not going to tell you that other teams haven't done this on other platforms, just that I know that this is what this team did. They have user secrets, right? Yeah. ASP.NET Core has the concept of user secrets. And I'll bring up the documentation just so we can see it. And what they say is okay, your settings files that might contain environment variables and other secrets, they get created if you use the tooling. If you use Visual Studio Code's built-in C# not built-in, if you use the C# extension's built-in features, I don't want to say that the C# extension is built-in, or if you use Visual Studio IDE, just by right-clicking and saying manage user secrets, it does all this. It sets up all the secret sauce for you. It goes and creates that secrets file over in your profile, whether you're on Linux, Mac, or Windows. It goes and makes it in your profile, and you edit it in your profile. You don't edit it in your solution folder, and it never gets to your solution folder. And basically, ASP.NET Core already has code that says, well, if you're using user secrets, let me go out and check the profile first, and I'll let that override anything else. And that's a great solution. It works really well. I actually like it so much that myself and other people use it in all .NET, whether it's ASP.NET Core or not. Whether it's just like, let's say it's just a service in .NET 5, right? .NET 6. You can bring that into your console app. You just have to do it manually instead of having a right click. But yeah, I use it. I think it's wonderful. And I am willing to bet that other platforms have it as well. I just haven't done that survey, so I can't just blurb it all out to you. But I like that as one method. I don't know what else, what other things you both might think of.
Well, there's always the chance that the problem with all these things is they leave them up to the developer to not make a mistake. Like all these tools are great, but like you said, if you screw up your git ignore file, then the files are going in or whatever whatever the case is, right? And
That was one
so
of
I
the
think,
answers, is
in
git
addition to
ignore.
that,
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I think in addition to that, though, what you need is something that's scanning your repos, looking for those problems. Now, you can't take them out. I mean, you can kind of take them out, but that they don't really go away in the history, although Chris would probably say there's a way to kill them out permanently. But even, typically once something's in there, you really just got to invalidate that. If it's an API key or a secret, you really just got to invalidate that and say, well, it's in the public eye now. It's not valid anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Stinks, right?
Yeah, you definitely want to invalidate that and swap your keys or do whatever.
Yeah. So I think you need a multi-stage, sort of like multiple stages of security there. Always have that scanning going on in the background to make sure that you don't make that there's not a mistake. And there are tools that do that, I think, right?
I mean,
so the key is just catching it early, and oftentimes that stuff is not run locally. I am aware of some extensions and the tooling that even as you're working in your IDE or before you commit, they will run and say, hold on a second, I think I see a secret there. But
that's right.
That tooling usually costs money, and I hate to say it, a lot of enterprises, I'm gonna just look at you, right? A lot of enterprises would rather leap over those dollars per seat than the potential liability of like giving up a pretty important secret to a cloud subscription. I mean, maybe you should pay for this local scanning that doesn't even let it get into source control. I don't know. Just me. A lot of times that scanning is done at the CI/CD level, but I would argue it's late. You're a little late on that. It's in the source control at that point, totally. Right? Yeah.
That's why I say. So, but at least you find out, right? Because it's in source control, but it hasn't been there very long at that point, right? I mean, theoretically, it's there. You're going to find out pretty quickly, and then you can go and invalidate that thing and remove it. I mean, if you don't have that, any other tool can fail. Well, that tool can fail as well. But what I mean is, you could say, oh, you get something that's built into the IDE and really catch it before it ever gets there. And then someone says, oh, it was a quick change. I did it in Notepad, and I just used the git command line and I checked it in. And then, where's your IDE, right? So, by all means, I think you just need to, need multiple approaches to it.
Yeah. So what was there was the point there. I think I don't know if I accidentally removed the chat question, but there was like Sky Hoshi had pointed out that in many GUIs, you can go line by line when you stage. You can actually do that from the command line. You can stage.
I was looking back for that. Oh, there it is. Sky Hoshi says in Git, you don't see that one? It says in Git Kraken, it will allow you to choose a line to stage.
And I use that.
As long.
Yeah, I use that.
What's that?
I have used that feature. You can also do it from the command line. You can stage lines. You don't have to stage entire files. Which sometimes can be very useful. It can be very useful. So, like, here's the comment. I don't trust GUIs and Git extensions. Sure. I tend not to use extensions and IDEs. I kind of am with you there. I do feel like they're getting better. There was a time when I thought they weren't very good at all. They're getting better. Why do I keep espousing sounding like a commercial all the time with Git Kraken? Because when I pick features in Git Kraken, they're almost always one-to-one with an actual command line. There's no sync command that magically tries to push, pull, and push, fetch, and pull and merge and whatever it takes to get the branches like merged. There isn't that. So it's very much like just having a quick way to run CLI commands that I was going to run anyway. I agree that I do think they're getting better though. In fact, I used to be one of the most vocal critics of using the Team Explorer tab for Git work in Visual Studio. And the Visual Studio team has come a long way with the Git changes tab and the Git menu. They've come a long way. It is not that old experience where I told people you're going to hurt yourself. You can be successful. I think it's nice to know how things work under the hood so that it's not even just so much that you can save yourself from problems. I think some of it is that you can start to predict what's going to happen. Like after watching tonight, if you're looking at, and I like a visual tool, I really do. I look at this visual tool and I say, oh, I can see that I'm going to have to merge into a main that has taken a lot of branches from different places lately. This should be interesting, right? I might even do what I call a try it out merge, where here I've reset, like, let me go back real quick. I've reset this scenario, right? I don't need to open the pull request to just try out a merge and see what happens. And if it has a conflict, then I know I won't even start the pull request. So if I've reset this scenario and I say git status on branch, I'm on the branch I want, let me just do a git merge main, which I do this only for the purposes of, first, I'm sorry. I need to switch to main because I never did. In this scenario, I had to pull first and then I need to git switch back. So, right? I started the scenario to demonstrate pooling, but now that I've done that, I might really do this at work. I bet you I will do this, as I'll say, well, git merge main. Oh, wow, look, the pull request is going to cause a conflict. I know before I even open the pull request because I just gave it a shot. I just said, well, what happens if I merge main? Oh, conflict. Well, is the conflict easy to resolve? Yes, no, maybe so. If it isn't, let me abort the merge and then think about it for a little bit. What is the conflict? Maybe the conflict is in a file that like I didn't even work on. And how does that happen? Well, that happens when you merge from main. When you say git merge main into your feature branch, you are taking on all the changes everyone else has made. And your pull request might look like it touches other stuff. It doesn't actually touch other stuff, but it will look like it does. So I do trial runs like that all the time. And then I can quickly abort them. I can say like, well, what were to happen if I tried to merge these? Oh, it doesn't work. Well, what do I do to abort the merge again? Oh, there it is. It says git merge -- abort. And I can abort and then stop and say, okay, what's the problem? What's going on? Every scenario is unique. Sometimes the best way to resolve a conflict I found is to just take the other person's file, and I'll do that. And I might even do it. I might even put a commit on my branch that does that, and then go ahead and merge it so that the merge conflict never really happens. But these are not foolproof solutions. Why? Because at work, other people could be merging pull requests too. And those pull requests could create conflicts that you haven't even seen yet. So I want to be careful to make people think that there's some foolproof method I have to avoid conflicts, because it's impossible. It's a team of people working on the same line of code.
Yeah, it is impossible. I mean, I think that's it's going to happen, and that's why we need to get better at using these tools. We, not you, we meaning me. I need to get better at using those tools, because I mean, you showed us how to solve that problem, and it took us a while to walk through it. But if you were doing that on your own, that was 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes worth of changes, right? It was not a big deal for you to fix that.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go through this scenario real quick. Does the line commit make an intermediate commit for you? I want to make it clear I'm trying to not take too much more time. You can do all this from the command line, but if I do a git merge main, and I'm just going to do this in the tool, I'm just going to do it in the tool. I've got a file conflict. The file conflict's an index. Let's look at how GitKraken wants to resolve it. GitKraken says, hey, here are the two different. Do you want to just take A? Do you want to just take B? What do you want to do? And it's like, okay, well, what I want to do is I want to take puck and I want to take rink and then I want to take goaltender. So look what's happening down here. It's adding puck, rink, and goaltender. And then, wow, what the heck is this change here with ice skates or inline skates? Git didn't seem to notice that as a change. It's saying like, oh, well, that was already changed, so it's not a conflict. No. I want this line here. I want skates. So what I need, I thought there was a way to do this. See, now it's funny. It's gonna make a little bit of a fool out of me. I thought there was a way that I could pick something not chosen. This is why if I went out to Notepad, I would just change the file, right? Like I don't want ice or inline skates. Who made that change? So maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. But I could then save this, and I want you to understand, I've done this in a tool. You can do this through commands. You can say, take this line. But let's just save this. And what does the commit look like? Well, this is a work in progress commit, and it's basically just going to be the changes that you made. So to say it's an intermediate commit, I mean, whenever you resolve a conflict, there's a commit that's being made anyway. So this is the commit that you're proposing. This is what you're telling Git. This will solve the problem. Oh, actually, yeah, I can unstage this hunk. Look at that. See that? I can do that right here. I can unstage this green line. I can say, no. Don't stage the green line. Now, I lost it. It's gone. But I think that's okay, though. No, it didn't do what I wanted. Oh, no, actually it did. The staged file now has skates. So by unstaging that change, I have reverted it back to skates. This is what it's going to look like. So it was a little roundabout. Would I have used a tool for that? You know, I probably would not have figured that out. I probably would have gone out to Notepad and said, let me just fix it. But see, a lot of people don't even know you can do that. They don't even know that you don't have to use your tool. You can close that all down, fix the file precisely how you want it in whatever editor you like, and then you're done. A lot of people, I think, you don't know that that's even a thing that they can do.
Yeah, I think it looks like, if I'm understanding the comment correct, Tiwahu just got it all of a sudden. They're like, I see. It's just editing the file used for the commit. That's really all you're doing, right?
Yeah. Even when you're using fancy tools, in the end, it's put the file the way you want it and commit that. That's what Git's asking you to do. And all these tools are just trying to help you there. And I don't think it's bad. I really applaud the efforts that developers are making, but sometimes I think it's so oversimplified that it seems too much like magic. And as a developer, then you're just like, well, I don't know what the magic is. So I guess I have no choice but to copy the file out, throw the repo away, reclone the repo, and start over. It happens, right? I do agree with this. I think this kind of stuff you can do. It's super awesome. You can have hooks for code quality. It's super cool stuff. Git can do it for you. A lot of people don't use Git's hooks, pre-commit hooks. A lot of people don't, right? I mean, heck, I honestly should use them more. It might be harder to use in an org maybe because you got to get everybody on board. But no, we should probably be using these tools more. We should be using Git bisect more, which basically automatically goes back to help you figure out where a problem was by saying, well, let me run the code against your test halfway back. And then let me in a binary fashion, let me keep cutting it in half until we figure out the exact commit that makes the test fail. Nobody uses Git bisect. And when I say nobody, I'm sure some people do, but more of us should. So yeah, a long show, right? Because it's, because we talked about Git.
Yeah, but we learned a lot, I was putting some stuff in the chat window there too. If you're new to us and we we love all the comments and we see a lot of familiar names. We see some new names. Follow us on Twitter at the Dev Talk Show, or follow the hosts at Space Shot, at Schwami, at Rich Ross. And, then you'll know like what we're going to be talking about. We tweet about what the shows are going to be about, because we'd love for you guys to come back and spend some other time with us, on more on Git or on different topics. We talk about so many different things, and looks like Chris is bringing up the meetup page. Well, so okay, yeah. So here's our whichever
I'll
one
stop.
you want to go.
I'll stop. Go ahead.
We're chasing each other.
Yeah,
this is our YouTube channel where we've got a lot of stuff up here, all the old shows. By the way, I was looking at that. If you go to if you see where the old you're moving around. That's all right.
What do you want to do?
Don't worry. It doesn't matter. You take it. Go ahead, talk, because you're in control. So it's good.
I was just showing that we're live right now. That's all. That's it.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that there's lots of places where there's content. Our YouTube channel has all the old shows. I was making a joke because earlier I was looking at some of our old videos, and I looked to the right, and it's not that long ago, just a few weeks ago, I had this big beard, and it like shocked me to see it. I was like, whoa, totally forgot about that, but it's not coming up on this list. I think you have to go to the videos list or something like that. Oh, there it is right there. Yeah. That's not even the biggest one. There's another video from probably 3 weeks ago where it looked even messier. But so we've got that, right? You also have a tab open there where we have our meetup, where we do try to post our schedule in there so you can see what's kind of coming up. We've been trying to schedule. Have we had success doing that? Scheduling these things on YouTube? And
yeah, in fact, today this was a scheduled event on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
So that works,
and I think that works pretty good, And then there's Twitter, right? And you can find us, the Dev Talk Show, or us as individuals, look at that. I'm just looking at who you might like. You got Brian Manisi. He was our guest. You don't follow him?
He was here last week.
Dev Talk Show. Yeah, follow him. You should follow Brian Manisi. He was our old guest. And that guy above that, Chief CLL, I think he's a speaker from Tech Bash really? In the past. Yeah, he was at Tech Bash.
Cool. Awesome.
I'm pretty sure. So, here's a good post in the chat. That the antithesis of cool. I found this from Meetup. Yeah, we appreciate that, because we like to know how people hear about these things. And we thought that the meetup is just a really good way, because it's searchable, right? Mm-hmm. And you can sort of see those things in advance, and people are always looking for content on their topic of choice. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. We've found that the meetup does work to draw. It's been helpful. And Almost Alcoholic found us randomly on Twitch. That works, right? There's a lot of ways for people. We want to make it easy for people to find us and join us, and both of you, those people have been commenting and participating in the show. We really appreciate you guys being here. Oh wow, look at that. Loca says, remember that I went on, probably was on Visual Studio channel talking about Solid. Yeah, I believe that stuff. That's funny. Yeah, we're going back. It's been a while since I've been on there, but yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. Oh yeah, so the meetup is located where? Off the Rails Gaming is saying, Chris, can you put that back up? Because or we can post it, right? Dark Elder came from a raid. I remember that. Yeah, I'm gonna post I'll post the URL. So it's meetup.com/ and it's the dash, right? The dev talk show. I think I got it right there. TY, you see that one? Kid wanted to watch Firefly, but saw this as an upcoming YouTube broadcast. Sorry, kid. That's great. Love that. Yeah, right. Raids are good. We've done a few raids, and we're not really like good experts at doing that, honestly. I don't know if that makes us good Twitch citizens, but
Well, the hard part is, so a little while ago, Restream added this thing where you could join, um, you could start and stop broadcasts on different channels midstream, but then they took that out of the free tier. So, because the
Yeah, that's
idea
right.
would be that, yeah, we would shut off all the other broadcasts, stay on Twitch, and then go raid, right? So we'll see, because maybe that's a feature that we do want. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's cool. So,
all right.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week, right? What other any other mentions we have? Is there any other events coming up or anything interesting we want to talk about? Really, right?
I didn't prep that far. We definitely make sure you're checking out the Philly.net channel on YouTube, because talks are going up from last weekend's Code Camp. It was really cool. There's some great stuff on there, and some of them I think will be future guests. I really hope so. I've definitely reaching out to a lot of the speakers, just asking them, giving a talk is great. But what I love about this format is we let the speaker just go on about their passion. And it doesn't have to be slides. It doesn't have to be, just how do you want to do it? It could be slides. If you want to show a presentation style, that's great. We'll ask questions. We'll get questions from the viewers. But if you just want to explore, we love it. It's not just planned. It's sometimes we've implemented stuff here and gotten lucky and it's worked and it's been like we're heroes. And other times it's like, well, we didn't get it working this week, but hopefully you enjoyed the show. So
yeah,
we learned what doesn't work.
Right. Even if it doesn't work. How about a shout out? We're the planning stages of Tech Bash, a conference that's all near and dear to our hearts. I think Rich is even wearing his Tech Bash shirt there. So Tech Bash, you can go to techbash.com. And Tech Bash is going to be November 8th. And that is a somewhat local event. So, for someone who said hello from Germany earlier, that might be a stretch for them. But if you're in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, even Boston, like those kind of areas, Connecticut, we pull people in from all over, Ohio. It's a great in-person event, and I'm looking forward to it. It's big. It's a 4-day event in the Poconos, which isn't terribly far from here, about 90 minutes from us in Philly or New York City. And we've had a great event. Unfortunately, it's been canceled because of COVID for a couple of years, so it's almost like hard to get back into the swing of that. But what a great event! So check out techbash.com and keep an eye on that for more information on that event, which will be coming up before you know it. Right, November, before you know it.
Yes, it'll be warm and hot and then cold again by the time we get there.
Right. Right. And yeah. So what do you think? Okay. Are we out of here? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Cool.
All right. Well, I'll take us out and Chris can hit the button in a minute. So listen, thank you everybody for being with us. Throw us a like if you can, subscribe or follow. You know the drill. Like all the channels talk about it. You guys know what to do. Help us out with that. Follow us, as I said, on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And most of all, we hope to see you guys here next week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the Dev Talk Show.